Welcome back to this course on copyright and related rights law. In the previous session, we had started to take a look at copyright and the bundle of rights that are provided under Section 14 of the Indian Copyright Act. In doing so, we had taken a look at the reproduction right and also the issuance of copies right. In respect to the issuance of copies right, we had also understood a related concern that arises with respect to import of legitimately bought copies into India in the topic of parallel importation. In today's session, we are going to be looking at another kind of copyright under Section 14, which is the right of adaptation. You can see under Section 14, just like how the reproduction right and the issuance of copies right was provided, similarly, when you read Section 14, it says, for the purposes of this Act, copyright means the exclusive right subject to the provisions of this Act to do or authorize the doing of any of the following acts in respect of a work or any substantial part thereof, namely, in the case of a literary, dramatic, or musical work, not being a computer program, to make any adaptation of the work. The same provision with respect to adaptation we find with respect to computer programs and artistic works as well. What then is an adaptation? How do we understand what this term means? Let us understand the meaning of the word adapt. Adapt means to make something suitable for a new use or purpose, or to modify. What is the purpose of a book? Do you recollect? You would remember that in our sessions on understanding literary works, we had understood that a literary work offers informative value, it has instructional purpose, and it also offers literary enjoyment to the pleasure of reading. The changing of purpose of an expression to a new purpose, as per this general meaning, would be an adaptation. But adaptation has also been interpreted within the purpose of the Act, and that will prove to be very helpful for us to understand in what manner Section 14 and the use of the term adaptation must be used. But before that, let us focus on another term which is used with respect to something like an adaptation. This is the reference to a derivative expression. Derive means to obtain something from a specified source. Let us understand that there is a clear relation between this book, which has a particular purpose and which has been adapted or modified into another expression which is serving a different purpose. Because the adapted work is the book, which is the original source, and the adaptation is linked to the original source, we can say that an adaptation would be a derived work because it is being obtained from a specified source. What is the purpose of a script? When we understand the use of a script for a play, the script provides instruction to the performers who are going to take the stage during the play and guide their activity on such stage, which will include movement as well. So a script can be distinguished in terms of a purpose from just a book. A book which is effectively the use of words in terms of its content would be descriptive of, say, a story. But in what manner must that story be performed? You see now the change in purpose? Therefore, can we say that to change the purpose which is present in a book to a purpose which is now satisfied through a script, are we engaging in an act of adaptation? With this background understanding, let us approach Section 2, Clause A of the Indian Copyright Act, which is defining adaptation. There are several subparts to Section 2, Clause A, and we will look at these parts individually. The first part, you can see, states that an adaptation means, in relation to a dramatic work, the conversion of the work into a non-dramatic work. What are non-dramatic works? We know that literary work is different from a dramatic work, and that is a non-dramatic work. An artistic work is different from a dramatic work. The purpose is different. The expression is different. We know that it is a non-dramatic work. Now, in the earlier example that we had taken with respect to a script, how do you convert a script for a play to a literary work? The example that we had taken of a book which is converted into a script could effectively happen with the instructional manner of performance of a work which is action oriented, where there is certainty of such action within the script. Then we can say that the literary work has been converted into a dramatic work. Similarly, a dramatic work such as a script can be converted into a literary work. A literary work, after all, is a non-dramatic work. It would then be more descriptive. It will take away the action component. Let us understand that when we refer to a very important case decided by the Delhi High Court, you would recall Institute for Inner Studies versus Charlotte Anderson, a case that we had discussed when we made a distinction between literary works and dramatic works, we had discussed that both literary works and dramatic works share a commonality, which is that both of these works can be written, but their purposes are different. And therefore, the general understanding of adaptation is something that we can figure in section 2a subclause 1, which talks about conversion of a dramatic work to a non-dramatic work. The example that we had taken is of a script which can be converted into a book. Let us look at the second part to section 2 clause A, and it says, in relation to a literary work or an artistic work, the conversion of the work into a dramatic work by way of performance in public or otherwise. Let us see, in relation to a book, how can such a conversion take place? We understand that under section 14 we had discussed, when we distinguished between literary works and dramatic works, that literary works are also capable of performances. The example that we had considered was that of lyrics. Lyrics are considered to be literary works because there is no action component to that performance. Dramatic works, on the other hand, like works of choreography, are action oriented in terms of their performance. Therefore, it would be possible to convert a literary work to a dramatic work, but the nature of performance would have to be in such a way so as to indicate the creation of a dramatic work. The additional requirement of fixation, which is required, as we had discussed, with respect to dramatic works and copyright subsisting in them, can be done through recordings. But how do we convert an artistic work by way of performance to a dramatic work? Can we imagine a painting to be converted to a dramatic work? Let us understand that paintings, despite their objective appearance, can tell a story. And this is especially the case if a painting is depicting certain figures. Where it depicts certain figures and provides a context for such figures to be present on the canvas, then if a performance were to be based on that context with the specific figures, is it not possible for a dramatic work to now come into existence? According to this provision, it says that this is possible with respect to both literary works and artistic works. It would be possible to create an adaptation in the form of a dramatic work by way of public performance in public or otherwise. Let us look at the third part to section 2 clause A, which defines adaptation. It says, in relation to a literary or dramatic work, any abridgment of the work or any version of the work in which the story or action is conveyed wholly or mainly by means of pictures in a form suitable for reproduction in a book or in a newspaper, magazine, or similar periodical. Let us first look at the portion focusing on abridgment. To abridge is to shorten a piece of writing without losing the sense of that writing. What does this mean? Imagine a book which is, say, 300 odd pages in volume. If we were to be given a task to shorten this book but retain the essence of the book, we could probably do it in 50 or 60 pages. And this version, the shortened version, which is retaining the essence of the work, although a distinct form of expression in itself, because it is derivative and taking up substantial portion of the original expression, this will be an adaptation. Abridgments are an important consideration in terms of what derivatives can be. And as we had seen, derivatives are connected to the source, which is why they are called as derived expressions. Let us now look to the second portion of this provision, which talks about representation through means of pictures, where a literary work or a dramatic work has been expressed through the means of pictures for the purpose of reproduction in a book or a newspaper or a magazine or such other periodical. According to this provision, this is an adaptation as well. You can see there is herein a conversion that's happening from a literary or dramatic work to an artistic work. This too, if you look at it, would retain the essence of the work. It is clearly connected to the original source. The next part of section 2 clause A says that in relation to a musical work, any arrangement or transcription of the work. Let us see what these terms mean with respect to musical work. Arrangement means that a musical composition arranged for performance with instruments or voices differing from those originally specified. Transcription is an arrangement of a piece of music for a different instrument, voice, or group of these. We have understood music, musicality, and compositions. We have understood that a composition is an expression of music. A composition can be represented through graphical notations, and we have understood that graphical notations will form a part of the musical work. But musical notations, when they are created, may be originally expressed for a particular type of instrument, which then means that if that particular notation were to be altered to fit the form that is specifically fitting for another instrument, then this application is also something that will be called as an adaptation. You can see in this comparison between images. Although basic principles of capturing music on sheet would be the same, but the manner of notation is different to an extent between instruments. So, if a notation has originally been made, say for example, for guitar, its arrangement in a different form for piano, for example, would be considered as an adaptation. Let us look at the last part of section 2a, which defines adaptation. It says, in relation to any work, any use of such work involving its rearrangement or alteration. A general provision, unlike the other specific provisions that we have seen in the earlier provision, this provision says that where there is a modification of the original work, then such a modified usage of that work will be considered as the usage of an adaptation. Let us look to another interesting provision within section 14 that talks about adaptations. You can see that under section 14, after having referred to adaptation right as a copyright under the bundle of rights provided to an author, subclause 7 says that in the case of a literary, dramatic, or musical work, not being a computer program, to do in relation to an adaptation of the work, any of the acts specified in relation to the work in subclauses 1 to 6. How do we understand this? Under section 14, we have understood that the author of the work, the right holder of the work, has the copyright to authorize adaptation of the work. What subclause 7 says is that the author of the work also has the right to control the adaptation. Why is that? You would realize that this is because the adaptation is significantly the original work. And there is no way that a derivative work, such as an adaptation, can be used in a manner that is prejudicial to the original work. I hope you are understanding this. Let me explain this again. Because an adaptation is a derivative, it is obtained from the original source. We can say that the essence of the original work is present in the adaptation, which means that any commercial utilization of the adaptation will in effect also be a commercial utilization of the original work. And therefore, if the reproduction of an adaptation would happen, it would also be a reproduction of the expression in the original source. What about the making of a cinematograph film of an adaptation? Imagine a literary work which is in the form of a book has been converted into a script for a film. If the script is adapted for cinematograph film, is it not the content of the book which is getting used in the film, albeit through a different expression? And therefore, what section 14 links such an adaptation and its commercial utilization to is to the author of the work, which is the original source. I hope with this we have clearly understood the scope of the adaptation right under section 14. In the next session, we are going to look at the translation right which has been granted to authors of works. Thank you for joining me. See you all in the next session. Thank you.